Hola, konnichiwa, namaste. It's Vinod Kumar, and I'm very excited to be part of Humans of Telecom.
Hey everyone, a very warm welcome to Humans of Telecom, the Unplugged podcast. This is your host Anurag Aggarwal, Chief Revenue Officer at GMS. As you all know, this podcast takes you behind the scenes of the fast-paced world of telecom and showcases the human side of some of the most well-known individuals within this industry. And today's episode is an extremely special one, as it marks a milestone 50th episode that we are producing today. And to celebrate this milestone, we have ensured that our guest on air today is someone truly exceptional. Today's guest is a renowned figure in the telecom industry, boasting over 3 decades of leadership experience at esteemed companies such as WorldCom, Sprint, Tata Communications, and Vodafone Business. Having successfully operated in the US, Japan, Singapore, and London, he now resides in Dubai, contributing his expertise to one of Asia's foremost investment groups. For me personally, when I started my telecom journey in 2014, I had the opportunity to interact with this gentleman a couple of times, and each encounter left me inspired by his dynamic leadership style and his ability to deeply connect with audiences. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Vinod Kumar, Vice Chairman Everstone Group. Vinod, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this journey. We'd love to hear more about you. Which part of the world do you belong to? And from where are you joining this podcast today?
Anurag, thanks for having me. You've said many kind words, so I'm very grateful for that. I'm currently dialing in from Dubai, but I'm originally from India. The inside of me is very much Indian, but I feel like I'm also a little bit from all over the place since I've lived and worked in several countries over the 3 decades of my career, which you just mentioned.
Thank you so much, Vinod. Once again, it's so wonderful to have you here on the show today. As far as your global exposure goes, I think our listeners got a glimpse of it when they heard a man speak in Hola, Konnichiwa, and Namaste all together in one breath. So we look forward to hearing further stories unfold about your experience. Talking about your experience, while there is a brief history about your work profile, which I've given in my introduction, but let's hear it more from the horse's mouth. What's Vinod's journey been like so far? Is telecom something that you had in mind from the beginning? And how has your entire journey been?
It's been a phenomenal journey. That's the first thing I'd say. But I also have to say that my entry into telecom was not premeditated. It wasn't deliberate by any chance. The thing that I knew even growing up as a kid, even before I was 10, was that I wanted to do something very international and that was global. And I was very fortunate that I got a breakthrough in telecom at the time that I did. And although I had an engineering background, I actually was seeking more of a global pursuit. My journey started in Sprint at a time when I think it wasn't even IP technology in the internet. It was X25 and frame relay, and then ATM. But my opportunities in Sprint were across technology, operations, customer service, sales, strategy. Pretty much anything nobody else wanted to do was thrown at me in the early stages of my career. But that proved to be fairly good grounding because I then got breakthroughs in more P&L responsibilities fairly early in my career, and then that took me around the world from Asia to the US to the Middle East now. And I've been also very lucky that I joined telecom at a time when the internet was exploding. And so the role that data plays in our world, the role that fiber optics plays in our world, and all of that was very good foundation for me to prepare for the days of the cloud and for more cybersecurity dimensions to the business. And finally, I wrapped up my career in the telco space in the mobile industry because I'd done only fixed and B2B till then. But my stint at Vodafone was very interesting because it was a large organization, multi-country presence, but a powerhouse in the mobile and wireless space. And so that was a good way to wrap up my telco experience. I still continue to be involved a little bit with telco, but frankly, now I'm more in the cybersecurity, cloud, data center, and other domains that I'm focusing on in my role in Everstone.
Wonderful, Vinod. That's been quite an exemplary journey so far. And you mentioned two organizations like Tata Communications and Vodafone, which have been a core part of your telco experience. And I know you've led both these organizations. How's that experience been? I mean, do you see any difference between the organizations or in the cultures or in the working styles? How has that overall been for you?
It's been fantastic. It's very difficult to compare these organizations or any two organizations for that matter. But I learned very different things in both those roles. In the Tata Communications experience, I joined when it was VSNL, and we had to change on every single vector. We went from a pure wholesale company to an enterprise company, from India centric to being truly global. We went from a voice company to be a data and then a managed services company. And all those transformations had to take place in parallel. And it was very rewarding to take the first emerging market carrier onto the global stage. And, I'll talk a little bit later about what was a very memorable moment. And in the case of Vodafone, it's a $12 billion business with 25,000 employees, including direct and indirect teams. And there it was about stepping up the ambition levels and changing the portfolio from connectivity to managed services and so on. And we achieved that. And so the transformation there was more about ways of working, what do we go to the market with, and also how to make a very large platform get even bigger. And both organizations had incredible people that I learned a lot from. I was very fortunate to work with people who had a lot of passion, a lot of integrity. And both in Vodafone and Tata, I think the common thread was they were both very purpose driven organizations.
Wonderful. And when you talk about passion, I have firsthand in Tata Communications experienced the passion which you yourself exhibit. So I think it all flows top down. And Vinod, you mentioned about a memorable moment that you'll be talking about. So let's hear that, within your journey, if there are one or two memorable or impactful moments, which ones would they be?
A couple of things stand out, and I think I'll be smiling thinking about these for a very long time. And the first one is related to the journey in Tata Communications when we first made it to the Gartner Magic Quadrant as a leader. And that was of great satisfaction and pride for all of us on the team, because when we started the journey, many people said that, being an Indian company, emerging market carrier, as we used to be called then, there was no hope of competing with the likes of AT&T and BT and so on. And to see our name alongside them and eventually even surpass some of them in the Magic Quadrant over the years, and the company continues to hold a firm position in the leadership category for global network services, was a really career highlight. And I'm so proud of the team that made it happen. And in the Vodafone context, the fact that during my tenure there as a team, we actually managed to beat all major European and US telcos for 3 years in a row, quarter on quarter, on growth rates for organic growth was really incredible, because making large companies and big platforms when you're in the double digit billions of revenue is not an easy feat. And the fact that we grew faster than everyone else was also something that I'm really happy and grateful for having been part of those teams.
Amazing. So I think for sure these are moments which one takes back with them in their journeys and remembers forever. So let's shift gears now, Vinod. That's enough about telecom that we've spoken. Now let's focus on what we call the human side. So while you're extremely popular and well known worldwide within this industry, but if there is something shocking or unknown about Vinod that we don't know, what would that one thing be?
um, you say popular, you say, and you use quite a few words in the description of me so far. But I think most people will be quite shocked to know that I'm actually quite an introvert. I get a lot of energy from people, and when the occasion calls it, I can step it up. But basically, I'm an introvert. I think that would shock many people. And the other weird thing, I don't know if it's shocking, but quirky thing is, while I work out a lot and I'm in the gym, and most people are listening to dance music or techno or all other things, I actually listen to Sufi and Christian religious music when I'm in the gym. So I think that would be quite unexpected for most people. They'd even think I'm very strange, which I am, I think.
Well, yes, for sure. It's an unusual one that listening to Sufi music in gym, but I guess everybody has their own passions and interests. So I guess that's something that works well for you. And talking exactly now about passions and other things that one does to recharge themselves, what are some of your passions, some of your interests? What does Vinod do to recharge himself?
So, I talk about body and mind, and for me, physical activity is very important. And I like three things. I like outdoors. I like sport, especially team sport if possible, and I like speed. And if these three things come together, I generally feel I achieve my flow moments within that combination. And there are two sports that I'm very passionate about. Both I picked up kind of probably much later than most people would. One is skiing, and the other one is polo on horses. So between these two sports, I get enough mountain air whistling through my ears, or and the speed definitely as fast as I can go, and my body and skill set would allow. I push the limits, and polo is a great team sport with both humans and animals, and both these really charge me up and give me both an adrenaline filled high, but also sort of clear my head and help me think clearer, and make me just a happier person. But in general, I think on a day to day basis, new ideas invigorate me, and taking concepts or an idea to something which is tangible, either on the business front or personal front, is what gives me the most satisfaction. So I'm very passionate about innovation and change, and just all the ingredients that make that happen most effectively for me, for people around me, and for the organizations that I work with.
Wonderful, Vinod. That's a lot of interesting things you've shared. And yeah, skiing and polo, I think these are two sports that not everybody has the privilege of enjoying, because as compared to the typical basketball or a football or a cricket, which everybody gets to dabble in, I guess polo and skiing are some of those sports which only a few actually manage to excel at. So it's amazing to see this side also of you. So I do hope that at some point of time we get to have a live experience of Vinod in a polo match and get to cheer from the stands.
You're very welcome to come and watch. And I need all the cheering I can get.
Awesome. We'll definitely book some time with you for that. And Vinod, now the next one is a very interesting part, which is a game that we play. So we expect our guests to come up with three statements. Two of them have to be truths, and one of them has to be a lie. And the expectation is that all those statements are so interesting and exotic and whatnot that it's difficult to identify which one is which. And typically, I have not been good at finding the right one. But let's see if I get lucky today. So, would you have three such statements for us today?
Yes, Anurag, I have three statements. I don't know if they'll qualify as exotic, but here we go. So the first one is I've lived in 6 countries. Uh, the second one is I speak fluent Japanese and Spanish, and the third one is I started off my career wanting to work in FMCG and have nothing to do with engineering, although I studied to be an engineer.
All right. I think in some ways, Vinod, through the podcast, if our listeners have also been attentive, they would have figured out that I have a sense that the first two seem to be truths, because even in my introduction, I mentioned a couple of countries. So let me count. I know that you have worked in, I'll say India for starters, and then you have Japan, you have Singapore, you have the US, and you have Dubai. And since you spoke some Spanish. I don't know. I'm just presuming maybe Latin America or Spain. One of those is also a country. So let's presume that you have been in 6 countries. Also, you started with Ola and Konnichiwa. So I think that just explains that chances, and unless you did that to throw me off, which we'll come to know shortly. But I'd like to believe you do know Spanish and Japanese, and that's quite interesting if you know these languages. And I'll take a chance. You also mentioned that you had an ambition to be in the international space. While, of course, FMCG also offers that. But maybe I'll take a chance that it's the third part of your working in the FMCG space. I think that's possibly a lie, and the first two are truths. So, how did I fare out there?
You maintain your track record of being wrong. Uh, so, so consistency is good, and at least you've proven that to your audience. The what is actually not true is that I speak fluent Japanese and Spanish. The operative word there was fluent. Um, I was conversant in Japanese, and I can still rustle up some Japanese, especially after a few glasses of sake. And Spanish, I know a smattering of Spanish words. And because of my polo passion, I am exposed to a lot of Spanish, but I don't speak the language. I've just started learning to. I'm actively on Duolingo trying to pick up my 20 minutes of Spanish a day and will get there. But I'm definitely not fluent in either of those languages. So that would be my lie. And it is true that actually I wanted to go. In fact, I purposely did the curveball, as you recognize, with my hola and my konnichiwa, and I can fool quite a few people, but I'm not fluent. But I did actually want to be in international, and I wanted to. I almost joined Philip Morris, to be honest, and then for some reason, in the very last minute, due to some logistics, I couldn't go there, and ended up going to Sprint to start my telco career. So the last statement was actually true.
Interesting. And what about the six countries? Which one did I miss out?
Actually, I just, you picked up countries that I haven't, I forgot. I'd also lived, spent 2 years living in Hong Kong. So technically, you could argue that I've lived in 7 countries. So it's India, US, UK, UAE, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Japan.
Ah, yes, of course, your UK
Yeah.
stint as well with
Yeah.
Vodafone. Yes,
Yeah.
so yes, it's seven.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I lied twice, I think.
Exactly. I think on technical grounds,
I'm disqualified.
interesting, but Vinod, I think that's amazing that such a wealth of experience that you come with. I don't know how many people are fortunate enough to have that, and I think you're still going at it. That's amazing. I think I never expected that after all these countries, suddenly Dubai will be your next home. So it's interesting to see that the action continues, and I do hope that there's a lot more in store.
Thank you.
All right. And the last question of this section and I don't know whether this is really even valid for you, but in spite of all the fantastic things in your life that you shared so far, if there is one thing that you could change about it, is there something that you would have?
Um, yeah, this is a great question. I reflected on this, Anurag. One of my philosophies in life is that I don't believe in anger, regret, or envy. I think they're wasted emotions. And I've had a fairly balanced life with its share of ups and some downs, but it's been a complete blast, right? And it's been I've been surrounded by great people throughout, and through the ups and downs, I've always sort of benefited from whatever I've been through. So I actually won't change anything, right? And if I could live my life all over again, I let it play out in whichever way it's meant to play out. But looking back, I don't have anything that I'd say I'm going to particularly change this or that. But if you put a gun to my head and say you have to give me something, I actually feel that during certain portions of my career, I wish I'd studied the technology a little bit more deeply. I was very into the product aspect, but I could have clicked maybe even more deeper into technology, because when you get deep into technology, I think you create, real differentiation. Not that I wanted to go back and engineer the things, but I feel I may have been a better leader if I'd been a bit more technical in my analysis.
All right. I think that's a fair answer, which we'll go with. And I think, in spite of your self professed lack of technical skills, I'm not sure whether that's actually true, but fine. We'll take that as an answer. And with that, Vinod, while we're having an amazing conversation, I really don't feel like stopping at any point. But we're now down to our final question, sign off question. What does being human mean to you? What sort of a human being would you want the world to remember you as?
I'd like to be remembered as somebody who's helped people achieve their full potential and still realize that they have headroom for growth and change. And I sort of remind myself as often as I can that in every interaction I have, regardless of situation, time, place, country, culture, that there is an opportunity to elevate somebody's feeling about themselves. And I think when you make people feel good about themselves and you show kindness, that opens up capacity for learning, capacity for innovation, capacity for change, and so on. So that I'm constantly thinking of how my behavior affects other people's energy, and for me that's really being human in my context.
Wonderful. I think that's an amazing thought that as a human being, we want to make sure that the fellow humans around us, whatever we can do to enrich their journeys and to help them become better human beings, I think there is nothing more fantastic than that one can aspire to do. And I think in my experience of interacting with you and from so many people who've worked directly with you, had the privilege of working directly with you, I've heard this feedback multiple times. So I think you are absolutely living up to this statement.
I try hard. I fail many times, but I try.
Yeah, but I think your successes in this aspect far outweigh the failures. So I think that's amazing. So, on that note, Vinod, once again, it has been such a fantastic conversation. Just as I thought that, we'll have so many interesting aspects about such a well known leader come out. And I think we managed that in our conversation. So, thank you for your time. I know you're extremely caught up. You're always jet setting around the world. But thank you for your time. And I do hope that in some time, our paths cross as well and we get to catch up.
Likewise. Thank you, Anurag. Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I wish all your listeners the very best.
Thanks a lot, Vinod. And as always, to our wonderful listeners here, thanks a lot for tuning into the show. We hope this episode, or rather this special episode, gave you a good glimpse of the human side of Vinod Kumar. Born in India, but having lived in 7 countries, he embodies a true global citizenship. Has an amazing stage presence, but claims to be an introvert as well. A workout enthusiast who vibes to Sufi music. A passionate sports aficionado who enjoys skiing and polo. And finally, an outstanding team player, an inspirational leader, and an exceptional human being. That for us is Vinod Kumar. So, if you enjoyed today's episode, do stay tuned in because we shall soon be releasing yet another episode and another compelling story from the telecom space. And do follow the podcast on your preferred streaming channel. On behalf of Humans of Telecom, this is your host Anurag Aggarwal signing off for now. Take care.